All right. This is a bond hearing. State of Georgia versus Michael Edwards, charged with aggravated stalking, 2024 CW 70981. Go ahead, counsel, proceed, make your case.
Yes, thank you, Judge. First off, I do want to stress, as the court knows, that Mr. Edwards is presumed innocent on this. Ayala does stress that a no bond is for extreme circumstances. Here, a separate court is going to address the other allegations that the state's making, but here he's simply being accused of making nonviolent, non-threatening contact, pretty much, one time for the purpose of seeing that his child's welfare is taken care of, and the bond order itself is not for a necessarily violent allegation against him. He's never been convicted of that either, but the nature of that allegation is for property damage to a cell phone. And then there's also her doing alleged to have done that same damage to him. But again, that case is simply open. The other cases are simply open. He's presumed innocent on everything, and he doesn't have any criminal history as far as I'm aware. And the nature of this allegation, although it's connected to another one, is not of a violent or threatening nature. There's actually contact alleged all this time. But I would hope that he'd be granted a bond and that we can wait for indictment and see the discovery and see what investigation was there into whether or not he had an attorney, was aware of what the bond order actually was commanding him to not do. And Your Honor, there does need to be criminal intent established. And we already had testimony at the preliminary hearing that there wasn't really any investigation into his intent. There was just investigation into his presence and his supposed communication and taking these photos. And so, Your Honor, I would ask for a bond in this case. It's true that he was already under another order, but he's presumed innocent for having violated that. And if this court has any concerns as far as the Ayala factors, I would ask that those concerns be addressed in the bond amount or in some special conditions, for example, a house arrest or a curfew or ankle monitor. But that otherwise he is given at least some reasonable bond and not ordered to have no bond at all, which is reserved for the most extreme circumstances.
Do you want to address some of those factors?
Oh, yes, Judge. I mean,
Oh,
yeah, he's not a
I'm
flight
sorry.
risk. Okay, yeah. So, four factors, dangerousness. Again, this is not an allegation that would put anyone in danger. It was alleged to have taken a photo and to be with her by her consent. And even by this allegation, which is yet to be proven, it's not like violent. It's not, harassing or try to intimidate her or bother her. She's actually welcoming the contact, and it seems to be, consensual contact between the two, which is what's alleged. So I don't think that allegation can say anything about a risk of dangerousness, let alone a significant risk. And Ayala does put that word significant in there. As far as likelihood to reoffend, he's never been accused of anything like this before and has no criminal history that I'm aware of. As far as a flight risk, definitely cannot be deemed a flight risk because he's actually initiating consensual contact with the police, giving interviews. He's never tried to flee based on this aggravated stalking allegation. He's actually engaging law enforcement supposedly in communication about it. And then lastly, as far as tampering, yeah, he has no attempts at to try to tamper with this aggravated stalking specifically. And that's all we had testimony about at the preliminary hearing. There was no testimony that he tried to compel any of these witnesses to not say what they supposedly told the police. And so, it's not a risk for that factor either, let alone a significant risk. So, given that he's not a significant risk for any of the Ayala factors, and by the preliminary hearing, he's demonstrated that he has community ties, which is our only burden to demonstrate. The burden shifting to the state to present a significant risk on an Ayala factor, I think, is missing from this case. And if the court does have any worry about any of the factors, I think that can be addressed through other means besides the extreme outcome of having no bond at all.
All righty. Attorney Freeman.
Thank you, Judge. We're arguing that Mr. Edwards remain on no bond status. Judge, he does have an open murder case in Clayton County. That case is actually set for preliminary hearing on Wednesday with Detective Moore. Detective Moore, in her testimony before this court this morning, did testify to this court that on March 16th, that was the last day Miss Brianna was seen alive. Further investigation after that led to some other people being involved, helping to cover up and conceal the death of Miss Brianna, involving Mr. Edwards. And those people are also charged and are on the calendar Wednesday. I mean, Judge, Mr. Edwards, the aggravated stalking charge led to the charge of murder. From the investigation, it was determined that Mr. Edwards went through a lot to conceal the death of Miss Brianna and to hide that. When I believe when her remains were found, or some of her items, they were burned. And that more of that will come out in Wednesday's testimony from Detective Moore. We were trying to keep the cases separate, but the aggravated stalking led to the murder charge. We believe that Mr. Edwards has, by the mere fact that he knows he's charged with murder, that he becomes a flight risk. Because there are other people involved who were charged with conspiracy, that we believe that there still is the potential for him to intimidate witnesses, because he knows those other people have been charged. From looking at his criminal history, the only thing I did see was in this year, there's an open case out of College Park for a theft by taking. I do not show a dispo for that, but that is the only thing I see in this defendant's history. And so given this, Judge, I do believe that Mr. Edwards at this point should remain on no bond status. And we are asking that you not grant any bond for Mr. Edwards.
And Your Honor, if I could just briefly comment, yeah, the theft by taking is dissimilar in nature, and I'm not sure if it resulted in a disposition yet or not. And then as far as the other factors that the state mentioned, those are factors for the Superior Court to consider on his other case. Just to say that you have an open murder case, that's not a bond factor. I mean, people are granted bond on murder regularly, and know who the witnesses are and all that, but there's been no evidence of him trying to tamper with witnesses in the aggravated stalking allegation, and he does have no history of this. So you just ask for a reasonable bond.
All right. So based upon the preliminary hearing, as well as I cannot justify at all providing at this time Mr. Edwards with a bond. I agree with counsel in that he is a possible flight risk due to the allegations that he does now is under an indictment. Well, have been charged with murder with the same victim as included in the aggravated stalking. So there are some state indicated that there are other individuals involved. And so I do not think at this time that I am able to impose or grant a bond. So your bond is hereby denied, Mr. Edwards.
And
Thank you, Your Honor.
As detail about flight risk, he would not be released if he posts a bond. In this case, he would still be held without a bond until the Superior Court determines his bond status in that. So I don't think he would be a flight risk because he would actually remain confined in the Clayton jail.
Okay, I understand, but based upon some other factors as well, his bond is denied.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
That's all of my business here. May I be excused?
Yes.
All right, thank you.